evening, Hyderabad. Welcome you all to the Hyderabad Entrepreneurship Summit conducted by TiE Hyderabad. First of all, thank you, Namita, Pulkit, Subir, and Mayank for making the trip all the way to Hyderabad to share your experiences with the members of your Hyderabad ecosystem. So, I would first start off by introducing our esteemed panelists. So, starting off with Subir. Subir has over 15 years of venture experience spanning Mayfield and ICICI Ventures. At Sorin Investments, founded by Sanjay Nair and Angad Banga, he heads early investments in fintech, enterprise SaaS, and consumer tech. His portfolio includes Strata, Encash, and our very own Hyderabad, Beacon, Enmovil, and Nolarity. Nolarity, of course, from the previous world, but yeah. And Subir is known for his focus on founder quality, product management, and scaling discipline. He's a graduate of University of Windsor, UK. Coming to Namita, again a very accomplished investor. She brings deep expertise in the field of impact investing. Basically, Enzia is a very unique VC firm founded by 3 women VC investors. And it's and not surprising that their portfolio has many investments which address women-related issues like investments like Leap Club, Proactive, and IMUMS. And apart from that, they focus on healthcare, education, environment, and have got investments ranging solving problems in oncology to cardiovascular sectors. And before Enzia, she worked with Omidyar Network, where she was investing in some very interesting and very well-known startups like Vedantu, White Hat, Doubtnut. She is an engineer from IIT Bombay and also has done her MBA from Stanford. Welcome, Namita. So next, I would like to introduce Pulkit. Pulkit has interesting combination of experience of being an entrepreneur and also an investor. He has 9 years of experience across operating and investing roles in early stage tech startups such as Carbon Card and Shop 101, and 3 years of experience across venture firms like Waterbridge Ventures and JP Morgan. With Unicorn Investments, which has made close to 50 investments across their 3 funds. He focuses on early stage SaaS, fintech, and frontier tech companies, helping founders refine product strategy, GTM, and scaling playbooks. Pulkit is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and Jet School of Business from Cambridge University. And coming to Mayank, Mayank represents a very interesting, different stage of investment, and also investments which are not necessarily in the core big 4 or 5 cities, but they go above and beyond and look at tier 2, tier 3 cities. They look at, they are a very early stage PE. Mayank, India SME Investments, where Mayank is the director, focuses on small and mid-market enterprises. Essentially, they look at companies which have reached at least about $10 to $12 million in revenue and are essentially profitable, and they take it on. So here we have an set of panelists who span all the way from, whose investments span all the way from seed investments to early stage profitability and right from 0 to 100 and beyond. And that's, again, very essentially the theme of this particular panel. So, friends, coming to this particular team, I think between all of us, we would have probably invested in at least about 150 companies across. We bring in a set of unique experience because each investment, talking to the set of founders, on an average at least 2 founders, so, and working with their teams is a unique learning experience. And some of the companies scaled, some of the companies have left us with heartbreaks. But when we start working with an entrepreneur, whether we invest or not, we always want that entrepreneur to succeed, scale, and really create that value to their customers and also to the nation. But the fact is, out of about 1.8 lakh DPIIT registered startups, hardly about 10,000 startups are funded in this country, out of which only about 25 to 30%, so roughly about 2,000 to 3,000 startups raise Series A, and out of which only about 30 to 40% raised Series B, which are like probably about 10 million to 15 million. And we have only about 100 startups which have gone about Series C, D, and above, and are unicorns. So, there is a significant gap between what we want to do, how we want to do, and finally how many companies really scale. And I'm sure each one of us over the last 10 years of experience have figured out some experiences or figured out some examples as to what makes it to make a startup successful and scale, and what are the pitfalls that one needs to watch out for. So we'll start off with the first question. I would start off with the lady first, Namita. How do you sort of spot the early trailblazers, early stage conviction, and particularly in impact sectors that you have been investing in over the last decade or so? Often walk across a fine line between gut thinking and process, right? How do you sort of personally balance the two, and what patterns reveal what 100x DNA looks early on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess there's not much difference between when you are looking at impact investments versus any other investments, because ultimately what we have learned is commercial success and impact kind of go hand in hand. So my learnings kind of apply, although kind of been focused on education, healthcare, and climate sectors, but really just apply to early stage investing in general. I think the question you asked is about gut versus process. See, ultimately gut is nothing but an accumulated sense of your experiences, right? And it is, all that experiences is based on certain data, which is, you start doing some kind of pattern recognition about what does customer love look like, what does a scalable founder look like, right? And you kind of build your gut based on the data and experiences and sometimes learnings from both success and failure, right? So that is really the gut. And process, we think process is really about pressure testing it, right? So pressure testing maybe, market logic or, some of the assumptions that we are making. And a lot of times we have confirmation biases, right? The more time we spend, sometimes we start loving the entrepreneur or the idea too much, or sometimes not liking the idea or entrepreneur too much, right? So process helps to pressure test. It helps to also, typically as an investment firm, we'll also have discussions and healthy debates between partners, right? So process helps with also getting tested from other partners on the table, from the IC. So I would say where gut helps to build conviction, process helps to really put data and logic to say this is what, these are still my early stage, this is my still assumption, these are my assumptions that I'm taking a leap of faith on, because in early stage you're still taking a lot of leap of faith on and crystal ball gazing, because you will never have enough data, but you have laid down the assumptions, pressure tested them, and putting a number behind that in terms of what a potential return could look like in different probabilities, right? You also asked a question on what does an 100x founder look like, right? So what are some of the signals we pick? So after looking at a bunch of different companies, and again, both success and failure, I would say three things, right? One is, a great founder to me balances ambition and resilience, because ambition will make you shoot for large outcomes, but the journey is always hard, so you have to be resilient. The second is customer obsession, right? Whatever you're building, whether it's a company in education sector or a D2C product, like customer obsession is very, very important. And the third thing is actually your ability to sell, whether it is to sell to your customers, whether it is to sell to your next set of investors, whether it is your ability to sell your vision to people who should join you and be part of your team, right? So I think these three are very important characteristics as we look for in the really 100x founder, as we call it.
Resilience and selling is very important. Namita, I would also request you to take a quick 30 seconds and tell us about your fund and your thesis. That would help set the context.
Yeah, sure. So at we have started our journey by focusing on three fundamental sectors. We are a sector-first fund. Today, the sectors we invest in are education, healthcare, and sustainability. We look to grow, we will keep expanding on some of these sectors. I think our idea is that no matter where the world is heading, the fundamental core needs, are going to be very, very important to be catered to, and there are deep profit pools. It's more important to understand these sectors deeply and marry what a good business model could look like and how the businesses should be built. And that's where me and my partners, we bring in the experience of having spent time in these three sectors and working with our entrepreneurs, either to identify the right opportunity or to work with them to build some of the most successful businesses that we aspire to build with them.
You invest...
and so our first checks have ranged from anything between $500,000 to $1.5 million. Seed, pre-series A. Sometimes we do opportunistic series A too. And we do reserve the capital for follow-on.
Pulkit, again, you come in at a very early stage, probably slightly different sectors. But again, how do you measure some of the things that Namita mentioned about, and what are the parameters that you look at and to build a conviction? Because a lot of companies that you are investing are essentially category creators, and there are no comparables. So how do you build that conviction even before there is any revenue traction?
Right. So let me
And also a minute about each one of you when you're starting off, just talk about your thesis.
Right. Yeah, so let me just give a quick intro about Unicorn India Ventures. So we're a Bombay-based fund mainly investing into deep tech. $1 to $2 million is our check size. Pre-series A seed stages where we typically come in. We are closing our third fund right now of around $120 million. We'll announce the final close in a couple of months. Just to give you an example, a few investments we've done recently into semiconductor, nanotechnology-based drug application, underwater rover, drone. In Hyderabad, we have one investment in cybersecurity and two other investments in deep tech we are kind of currently doing in Hyderabad. So in terms of what we as a deep tech fund look for, A, in the idea and B, in the founder. So in other segments, for example, e-commerce, fintech, or other operations-heavy segments, defensibility of the business model is one of the core thesis area where, VCs spend a lot of time in, obviously along with the team and product and everything. For us, along with the business model, defensibility of the tech becomes a very major issue. So, for example, in semiconductor, if someone pitches us an idea, then along with evaluating how will they sell that chip, we also try to look at why this chip is superior to another chip being manufactured by a company A or company B, right? So that's a core focus area for us while evaluating a deep tech company. We vet the technology through experts. We try to kind of go deeper into understanding the nuances of the technical aspects. In terms of the founder quality or the team quality, the 3 points which Namita mentioned are obviously very valid. The customer obsession obviously is number one. How well they understand the pain point of the customer is very critical to us. Then the cultural aspect of the founding team, how culturally integrated they are, how well is the capability of the founder to lead, and obviously third point, that how well they're able to kind of sell their idea, not just to their customers, but also to potential employees in their company and potential investors for the future. So yeah, these three things are very critical. And yeah, market size. Why now is one question we spend a lot of time figuring out, that why this idea should be implemented now and, not 5 years down the line or 10 years earlier. So that is key aspect we look at while understanding the market. And especially in deep tech, why now becomes quite critical because it's a global space. So for us to understand the why now is very important in deep tech. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it resonates well. Even at DVC, we say team, TAM, traction, and technology. So culture is a very important aspect of team that you, along with the resilience and ambition, that both of you talked about. But very interestingly, probably in the last 5-6 years that I have been in the VC world, I would have seen some 600, 700 pitch decks. One thing that I notice is every founder thinks that he is on the top right corner of that 4x4 matrix, probably the most busy corner that I have ever seen. So Subir, my question to you is, how do you differentiate between genuine contrarian founders and those who are just trying to be different? And is it necessary to be very different from what others are doing to succeed and scale?
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Hyderabad. It's working now. Good evening, Hyderabad. I am Subir Monga. I'm part of a firm called Soren Investments. We're based out of Bombay and Bangalore. We're a 1,350 crore fund. We tend to invest anywhere ranging from 15 to 70 crores per company. Completely sector agnostic. We do technology, enterprise, financial services, consumer. The primary pattern that joins all of this is backing really good founders. People build businesses and not the other way around. So I think that's how we look at life for ourselves across the board. To answer your specific question, I don't know whether one needs to be different, contrarian, all of that stuff. I think, Namita Pulkit answered a bunch of this stuff, but for me, honestly, it's authenticity. And I think differentiation comes out of authenticity. I think each individual has been born and brought up in a certain manner, in certain circumstances, has gone through life in a certain way. And I think that drives authenticity. And those experiences are what make people different. And I think if you try to do anything different beyond your authentic self, then I think it just shows up as trying to put on a face. And I think that happens 99% of the time. I think everybody's trying to emulate Elon Musk. Don't emulate Elon Musk. Just be yourself and be your own Elon Musk, right? And I think that will show up. So I think, very simply put, first principles thinking, be yourself, put your cards on the table, nothing to hide, no pretenses, Eventually it is building a business, finding customers, finding your co-founder, finding product market fit, all of these things are a function of authenticity, to be very honest with you.
Without being different, how do I scale massively? Because that is what every entrepreneur wants to do, right? And be the market leader.
No, I don't think you need to be different to scale at an individual level. I think differentiation in business, yes, because you will find your product to be unique, different. There was a time when there was a, enterprise stack, then there was mobile, laptop, then there was cloud, now there's AI, and you'll keep differentiating on the product. You don't need to differentiate yourself as an individual. You need to be yourself as an individual. And I think eventually, especially if we speak on the enterprise sales side of things, your authenticity and your ability to connect with your customer, who's supposed to be your potential customer, instead of, trying to tell him a story with something will work, not be honest with him, right? Understand what his pain point. I think the biggest mistake people do is they talk more than they listen, right? And I think listening in itself is an art. So sit down, sit in front of your customer, listen, understand his pain points. That is authenticity. That is differentiation, right?
Very valid points. Being authentic, honest, and be a good listener first to even get the market signals to see whether they're on the right path or not is very important. And coming to you, Mayank, your fund enters at a significantly later stage compared to any of the other funds or any of us over here. Do you see and do you think there is a significant opportunity and significant number of companies where you can invest? Is the pool big enough that companies can grow 100x from there, from your point? And and how different is the evaluation methodology compared to early stage funds? What do you look for?
So in the whole journey of X to 100x, we essentially don't enter at a stage where the company is at an X, right? Our journey begins when the product market fit has been established, when there is a very clear unit economics, right? And when the company is looking to raise capital for growth. right? Now that growth may come from various avenues. The company may try to expand the wallet share with the existing customers. The company may look for geographical diversification, which may require additional capital to be infused in the business. Or the company may be looking to expand the product portfolio itself, right? So while the experimentation continues, but then the experimentation is not happening on the core product side. The product will keep evolving as the time goes by, but the core strategy will remain the same, right? So yeah, there is a difference when we evaluate a business where we come in with a check of, let's say, 80 crores as the first check, right? I'll take an example here. From Fund 1 of India SME Investments, we made an investment in a company called Kushals, which is into fashion jewelry space, right? That company had close to about 15 or 16 stores, all in and around Bangalore. Now that space, that market is a 20,000 crore market, the fashion jewelry market in India. We were not able to identify even a single company with a revenue of more than 100 crores. We could identify at least 20 companies which were trying to create an online marketplace for themselves, but every company ranging in the 30 to 50 crores kind of a revenue. Small ASP, high customer acquisition cost, right? That's when we met the promoters of Kushal, who had a very differentiated way of expanding the business. They were not willing to go online because they believed that a high ASP product in this category is more likely to succeed. And if I'm able to offer a better experience in a store environment to my customer, I am more likely to come out as a winner in this category. That bet worked out pretty well for us. Again, I will not say it was an X to 100X journey for us, but for the company, we were the first investors. They had already achieved a scale. Post our investment, they were able to raise successive rounds of capital. We made a partial exit last year. It was not a 0 to 100X, but a 0 to 12X kind of an exit for us.
Very interesting, considering that none of us a couple of years back would have thought that fashion jewelry can be a VC investable business, considering that it's been there for long and it's such a fragmented, maybe every one of us thought it's a small scale localized industry with tastes which cater to a localized taste, cannot scale nationally. But seeing some of these traditional businesses being redefined and becoming VC businesses is something which is amazing. And yeah, for some of us, most of us who invest only in technology and deep tech, this is a very interesting learning. So can you also talk a little bit about your thesis quickly? You did mention a few points while you are talking about, but if you can just state it for the audience.
So again, just as Subir also mentioned, we are a sector agnostic fund. We are investing out of a 1,400 crore fund now. We started deploying, so this is the second fund we are investing from. We started deploying from our fund 1 back in 2018-19. Some of the portfolio companies would include names like CityCart, which is a value retail company, Kushals, which is India's largest fashion jewelry brand, Simpolo Ceramics, which is the third largest ceramic tiles brand in the country, a bunch of financial services investments that we have made. Again, the thesis is to go beyond, to look beyond just metros in tier 1 markets and identify investable opportunities in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Now, there is a specific reason for that too. I'll come to that reason. But just to quote a few numbers, while we invested in, while put Fund 1 and Fund 2 put together, we have invested in close to about 16 different companies. We screened close to about 2,600 companies to identify those 16 companies to invest in. Right? So one of the key differentiators that India SME has is our ability to source deals, not just from standard channels like investment banks. We go beyond sourcing deals through bankers, but we have our own proprietary sourcing channels as well. Right? So the more number of deals you have, the higher is the ability to reject deals at a later stage also if required. Right? So at any given point of time, our team will never be under a pressure for deployment. We will have enough and more opportunities on the platter to invest in. Now, all the bankers, all the investment banks are focused on tier 1 metro cities because they are stationed in those cities. Right? Nobody is looking at places like Nasik, Nagpur, Raipur to identify profitable opportunities. We go a step beyond, we visit those cities, again through a network of wealth manager, chartered accountants. We identify those kind of companies and we make inroads into that. In most of the companies where we have invested, while many of them are proprietary deals, but even deals which came to us through bankers, we would have met the promoters before looking at the deal. So that gives us enough time to understand the promoter's mindset before we look at the numbers and the balance sheet, right? Because for us, the integrity of the promoter, the quality of the promoter is not just as important, but more important than the numbers which are looking on the P&L and balance sheet. So the more time you spend outside of work environment in social setup also gives us a better understanding of what kind of promoter we are going to deal with in the future.
No, very interesting, and talking about less than 0.5% conversion, but sourcing so many deals, and particularly through the chartered accountant network, is a very interesting takeaway. No, thanks, Mayank. No, but again, all of us would have seen, and I also mentioned, not every company becomes a unicorn. Okay, less than probably 10% or even less than that. Probably raise funds and then go all the way. Yeah, some of them have good exits in between. But even during this entire process of scaling, the companies need to evolve and change. A lot of times at very early stage, the founder is doing everything. They don't have a CFO, it is founder-led sales. But then over a period of time, a different set of leadership skills are required. And the organization itself needs to evolve. So the next set of questions I would be asking is to figure out as to how does organizations evolve and what do founders need to look out and how do we as VCs support them. So Subir, the first question to you is, you have been part of some very interesting companies, whether as a direct investor or part of a team which invested, companies like Licious, Nolarity, which really scaled. What have been their, when do you sort of ensure that this startup moves from a hustle-based, chaotic culture to a process-driven culture? And how do you help make the transition?
So I think at no point in time will I take credit for the fact that we help that companies go from a hustle-based to a process-based. I think it's a natural evolution, to be honest with you. And I think that starts right at the top when you are picking the company to back. Because I think the founders themselves realize the constraints that they have as they are scaling the business, right? So this is more, again, circles back to a founder-first mindset. If you have picked a good team, a good founding set, more often than not, more than one founder, but rarely single founder, although I've been fortunate to have seen single founder successes as well. I think founders themselves recognize two things. One, they recognize is that they need to build a team around them to scale the business on day one. Now, when they need to bring a team on board, automatically the quality of the team that you bring on board drives process automatically. So I think founders will never ever remove that hustle culture out of the organization because that is just the DNA of a founder. If that is not the DNA of a founder, then you should not be a founder. Let's just put it that way. And it is the team actually that comes on board, the professionals who come on board, high quality ones that basically also in many ways educate the founders to say, hey, like if we put these processes in place, we can go from X to 10X, right? And we remove a lot of the leakage that happens in that process. So I think it's a lot of give and take. I think if founders build these businesses without building top quality second layer teams, you will not have scale. That scale gets achieved out of top quality teams that build processes on behalf of the founders.
Also very difficult for the founders is to let go. Sometimes while they build teams, they want to be control of everything. And that sort of, sometimes it's difficult for them to draw the line. How do you ever intervene in such cases and help the founder, coach the founder?
Very rarely. I think one thing we have to appreciate, which I have, come to realize that whether you are a unicorn founder or you're somebody that's even running an non-fundable small business, right? You quit your good paying job and you became an entrepreneur. I have respect for you because you are an alpha. right? Then as investors, our job is to go fund super alphas who want to raise money and scale their business. Now you go try telling a super alpha what to do, right? That is a recipe for disaster. That is not going to happen. I think it comes out of conversation. It comes out of mutual respect, where you sit down across a table more often than not informally, over dinner, over a drink, and have a conversation to understand it's usually communication. 99% of the time, the problem is never intent, it is communication. And you're basically just playing the role of bridging that gap of communication from one end to the other end. Very simplistically put.
And coming to you, Pulkit, what do you think is the most underrated trait of enduring founders? What do you think is the most underrated trait of founders who endure and scale through this process? Some of the founders who have evolved from being probably just a founder to also being a CEO.
Yeah, I think pinpointing the values of the company, which is going to kind of hold everyone together, is one of the most underrated trait, I feel. As the company grows, in the beginning, it's all chaotic. Everyone is trying to figure out the product market fit. They're trying to hit the numbers. They're trying to fundraise. But as the company grows, you need a set of 4 or 5 values which keep everyone aligned and accountable. And that becomes like the core job of the founder to A, find these 5, 6 values, and B, hold everyone aligned to those values. Just to give you an example, so when Google was growing like anything, John Doerr, who was one of the VCs invested in Google, he kind of saw that, okay, the company is growing, but there is kind of a misalignment kind of coming up within the company at the early stage. So he went there, sat with the founders and presented to them the OKR system, which Intel used to scale gradually, right? And that kind of brought in the alignment. So founders' role kind of becomes quite critical in bringing that alignment about in the company. And there are like many systems to do that, but I feel that is one of the most underrated trait of the founders.
Founders basically getting everybody to understand their vision and align everybody according to what they want and how to drive. That becomes very important, and setting up the values. So really, Namita, now there is some learning which happens within a startup, but they don't need to reinvent the wheel. And some of us, we have seen founders make some mistakes. We have our own learnings. And within our portfolio also, we have some collective wisdom available. Is there a way that you as a VC institutionalize those learnings and share it across so that the collective wisdom compounds?
Hello. Yeah. Since we are a we take a sector-first approach. Our founders sometimes look up to us to, help them gather the market intelligence while they are busy executing on maybe the first idea that they had, right? And because in early stages, you are also doing a bunch of experiments before you kind of say, okay, this is the scalable PMF I am hitting. So where we help our founders from a learning perspective is because in our day-to-day job, we are building thesis, picking market signals, saying what business models are working, what may be the new frontiers within our sectors to go after, where some of our previous assumptions are looking like they are failing, So we are able to synthesize some of these learnings and share it with the founders on a one-to-one basis. I think more than that, right? Like we are not, even after, being a sector-focused ones, we are not expert at everything. So our job is to also, based on the problem statement that they come up with, our job is to help them, connect with the right people who can then sit with them and help them break down the problem and go deeper, whether it is, again, like a sector or domain-specific problem, or even, for example, an OKR system, or I'm now looking to scale up my business, so how do I kind of, bring that alignment? What is the cultural alignment that we can do? So we then put them in touch with the right HR consultants or the marketing consultants or the GTM experts, because we are not expert at everything and we can never be, right? I think, so the cross learnings happen. We also bring our founders together, and the informal relationships that they build, they are able to leverage each other, because no matter what we do, we can only be doing the Chinese whisper game between them. So it's best if they kind of connect and engage with each other. So that's how we facilitate. I think one thing that we do to be a good sounding board, especially when it comes to being sure that that we are also understanding the space and the customers that they are reaching out. So every 6 months we nudge, like most of us do customer interviews or customer calls at the time of diligence before we invest in the company. But as a practice, we also, with our portfolio company, also do this twice a year, where we will say, okay, give us our, if it's B2B setup, then we'll say, okay, give us your 10 clients. We'll do a quick, and partners and not just the analyst, like we as investment lead will go and talk to the customers, with their permission, and try to understand what is the value proposition that they are seeing. I think what it helps us is when we are talking to the founders about any strategic idea, one, we have developed better empathy and better understanding of how the product is being used on the ground, and we are able to bring that insight based on the ground understanding, and not just most of the times entrepreneurs, blame investors about just talking from air and having no basis. So it also helps to build trust. It also, I think the other two advantages we have as a result of this exercise is, one, we're also constantly updating ourselves as investors and becoming better, smart leaders to kind of pick signals for the next investments we're going to make, but also able to culminate all that knowledge to again then put together and share with the larger ecosystem. So
that's very interesting that you continue to keep in touch and meet the customers of your portfolio companies, which is a great learning. And yeah, definitely, I think we all use our credibility within our and the Rolodex of our, bring our Rolodex to help the the startups wherever, our portfolio companies, wherever they require help. Coming to Mayank, we talked about all the good things that founders must do to evolve and scale their companies, and how we partner as VCs with them. But what are, in your experience, what are some of the limiting factors that has held back good companies from scaling? They might have had a great product fit, a lot of customer love, but still they didn't scale. What are some of those limiting factors from your experience?
So when we are looking at a company, company comprises of multiple aspects, right? So it's the team, it's the product, it's the market that you're targeting, it's the end customer who is going to use your products. So any one of these can become an obstacle in the growth of the company, right? Leaving all those things aside, and when you are scaling up a business, you have to make peace with the fact that you will end up creating an organization of people who may be smarter than you. So a promoter has to understand and appreciate the fact that, okay, I will need to hire people who are smarter than me, who will be responsible for a particular role in the company, and they will be the masters in that particular, area of business. As a promoter, I may not be the master of distribution, I may not be the master of product, but I need to have an oversight on all the aspects of the business. So the ability to deal with that okay, these people report into me, but they are smarter than me, and I need to listen to them when it comes to their domain expertise. So I think this is something that most of the entrepreneurs understand, but they don't realize and appreciate that, okay, creating an organization of these kind of people is the requirement to scale up the business. So that at times may become a factor which leads to, stalling down of the business or.
So again, it goes back to the team. Hiring
Yes.
the right team and your ability to overcome your own insecurities and get the right, somebody better than you to help the company grow is what you are saying is helping. No, great. I think great inputs. But yeah, in this entire journey, Pulkit, one of the questions is like there are few good companies which are being chased by all the VCs, and at least a substantial number of them. How should a founder choose a VC? What are the qualities that the good founders have the choice? So what do you think a founder should look at before partnering with a VC and taking their money?
So, this relationship is a very long-term relationship. You kind of work with the investor quite actively. There are like weekly meetings. There are obviously the board meetings, quarterly catch-ups, and there are a lot of issues which you will face for which you might have to need a sounding board, right? So choose an investor with whom you feel that comfort of reaching out for any issue, be it a strategic problem, be it a fundraising problem, or a hiring problem. So judge based on the comfort which you feel with the investor. Obviously, sectoral alignment also helps. If you're a deep tech company and you want to kind of align with a deep tech VC, that will obviously add value in terms of connect, in terms of portfolio, help, etc. But the comfort which you feel with that investor, I feel should be rated the highest. And yeah, so that is what I would suggest.
You. Same question. So, what do you think the founder should look? Particularly, yeah, with deep tech, you talked about connects and some of the technology-based this thing.
I think good founders are able to do a lot of things themselves, right? Only one thing I'll say is entrepreneurship can be a very lonely journey, especially if you are a single founder, but even when you are a set of co-founders. Especially in the early stage, until you kind of reach that place where you've already kind of gotten your flywheel and you're kind of rolling, you almost need like people call it a 3 a.m. friend or something, right? You can go and have the authentic conversations with, where you can let down your guard and say, okay, this is not working, what can I do? So I think that support system, if you can find in a VC, in your investor, I think that is the best combination. And I think that comes from your ability to mutually understand each other, mutually appreciate where you're coming from. And if the entrepreneur is taking too long for the investor to even understand the business model and understand their value system, then maybe it's not a good combination. So some of those signals one can pick in the beginning to say, am I spending too much time to even just help them understand and appreciate what am I building, what my vision is. So some of those signals you can pick up in the beginning, or like the conversation, do you feel like you are respecting each other, right? So those signals can help you to find whether this is a good fit or not, because ultimately, the best investor and entrepreneur combination is if you can call them at 3 a.m. and have the most authentic conversation and, go through both the highs and the lows together.
So along with the money, you're also getting a 3 a.m. friend that you need to check out. If this guy is going to be, or this guy or this lady is going to be your 3 a.m. friend. So Mayank, on the same lines, can you talk about one or two examples quickly where you had to intervene as a VC, or your team had to intervene, where the company is struck and you help that company move forward?
Maybe I'll speak about a couple of companies that we are actively evaluating right now as we speak. We are at the closure stage. But the strategy that the promoter had in mind for geographical expansion was more scattered in nature, right? And so far, they have done well on that strategy. They have some 20-odd outlets spread across multiple cities, right? From our experience, we have understood that a cluster-based approach in a retail setup works better than a scattered approach. And this we have seen working well for two of our portfolio companies. One, of course, is Kushal's. The other one is CityCard. Both of them have scaled up the business. Kushal's to a 400 crore number, CityCard close to 1,000 crores, focusing only on specific geographies, right? So Kushal's 85% of the business continues to be from South Indian states, right? City Card presence is only in 3 to 4 states in North, right? And after we introduced this particular founder to these two founders, he understood the importance of creating a cluster and not spread out too wide, right? It becomes very capital efficient if you have a cluster. It becomes monitoring becomes easier. So those kind of interventions are required from time to time whenever the promoter is experimenting with something new. Now here he was experimenting with geographical expansion. So there we had to intervene and show him the right direction. Right? Once he has identified those geographies where he wants to create clusters, then from our side there will not be any operational interference. But then showing him the right direction is something that we have to do from time to time.
So that again goes back to compounding the wisdom which we acquire from our own portfolio companies.
Absolutely.
That's a great example. It's not just after you invest, it's even before you invest, you actually help the companies, you start helping the companies. And that's how you also show value. So Subir, you talked about the alpha founder, right? So when do you, but at the same point of time, as a VC, our fiduciary duty is also towards our investor. So when is the time you decide to step in, or when is the time, any examples where you said, hey, let the founder make this mistake, learn, and then get up and we'll support the founder through this process?
I think that again happens through a lot of conversation. So I think you have a lot of conversation in the initial part of the journey where you can share your learnings very early on, and you will see by sample set whether an individual chooses to implement that or go ahead down their path and make that mistake. And I think if it happens once, twice, I think by the third time they will realize that, okay, these people or this firm or this set of people know what they're talking about, because the alpha will never listen to you, okay? If you pick somebody who listens to you, he's not an alpha, okay? And we don't want to back non-alphas, right? So I think it's, again, just a lot of conversation. It's over-communication is better than under-communication. And that also, in the early part of the journey, I mean, he said the relationship is very long. The way I put it is the average investor, early stage investor and founder relationship is longer than the average American marriage. Okay. Okay. Now, if that is the case, in that instant, Chat Mangni Pat Biya will result in big problems. Okay. So we have to go on honeymoon, many of them. We have to spend time. We have to get to know each other. We have to date. We have to set expectations.
Speed dating doesn't work.
Doesn't work. And 2020 taught us that. So it takes its time and effort, but I think most good folks will figure out a working relationship. Not to say things don't go wrong, things do go wrong. I've been in situations where things go wrong. But I think it just depends on each person's personality type. There are certain personality types that you just need to leave them alone and they'll figure it out. There are certain personality types that themselves will come to you and say, hey, I need you to step in and help me out. And then there are some personality types who are just, for a lack of a better word, heat, right? At that point in time, you just have to send in the army, right? And say enough is enough, right?
Great points. And again, I think a lovely conversation. I'm sure the founders over here who are in the audience have picked up a lot of nuggets. Of course, everybody will have to go through their own journey. But again, I would like to being part of Hyderabad Entrepreneurial Summit, and each one of you, probably Mayank, you are still looking for the right investment in Hyderabad. Now, all of you have made investments in Hyderabad. But the fact is that today, probably the big three cities take about 80 to 85% of the funding. And that's where we see a lot of startups also coming in from. But since you have been involved in the Hyderabad entrepreneurial ecosystem, what according to you should Hyderabad do more, or the ecosystem do more, to have more startups coming out of Hyderabad and come on to probably tier 1 even in this list? Starting with you, Subir.
I think it's a lot more exposure. I think the exposure that founders in Bombay, Bangalore, or Delhi for that matter, Gurgaon, I mean, I say Delhi interchangeably, but people get very worked up. But, NCR as a block, I think it's just exposure. And if I were to leave one nugget over here is just invite as many successful founders, whether they are from traditional industries, non-traditional industries, from the Middle East who are successful. Like, for example, there's a big fintech company in the Middle East called TiE. It's the biggest fintech company in the Middle East, right? Invite him to Hyderabad. Like, make him meet fintech founders in Hyderabad, right? And that exposure to what to do, how to do. Get the OpenAI guys to come here. Get, Jensen Young is coming, I think, sometime later this year or next year to India again. Like, get him to Hyderabad, yeah? I'm sure NVIDIA has a big center over here as well. Yeah, get him to Hyderabad. Like, get the founders to meet people, expose them, get them to understand what kind of personality type you need to be to, just like build. It's just exposure, honestly.
No, the pattern I see in, say, even, for example, in a Bombay or a Delhi, right? Not just Bangalore for that matter. I think there is a little bit of a critical mass. If that gets created, then, that has a positive spiral energy, which enables for that ecosystem to get created. One, of course, it's about the founders and the co-founders, etc. But it's also about the talent, right? What the people who will join these companies, what are they talking about? What are they excited about, right? So I feel like, I don't know the answer, to be honest, right? Like, what could be done, but whether it is like maybe, whether it was like an IIT Delhi or an IIT Bombay and a Powai Labs, could there be some equivalent of that being created and the alums are supporting the student entrepreneurs, some kind of ecosystem generation, or it could be biotech and deep tech because that's big here, or enterprise software, right? Could we create the Chennai has the ecosystem around enterprise software. So I think we have to pick certain themes and create some, smaller ecosystems and not just, this is great, right? Like everyone is under the same room, but how do we create maybe the smaller ecosystems around certain themes, whether it is college ecosystem, whether it is deep tech ecosystem, whether it is an enterprise ecosystem, because that can go a long way because people will not feel alone, right? People will see and, be able to connect on things that they are thinking about right now. So maybe some of that will help. Again, some initial thoughts.
Things in progress, some of them like TiE Hub and all of them have done a great job. But yeah, we still have miles to go. Pulkit?
So we have one investment already done in Hyderabad in the cybersecurity space called as Deep Algorithms. We're kind of doing 2 more investments in very deep tech, IP heavy, hardware heavy domains. So, and deep tech is a very global space. There is a lot of learning to be had from US market, China, Europe. So if Hyderabad can build that bridge with these tech hubs globally and might be as well leapfrog what Bangalore and Delhi and Bombay might be busy doing internally, they might just leapfrog and kind of build some bridges globally. So that is one angle which can be explored by Hyderabad. And based on the kind of deep tech startups we are seeing, there is a lot of potential in that.
When can we expect the first investment from India SME in Hyderabad?
So from growth stage companies perspective, there are quite a few interesting companies in Hyderabad, and we are in active discussions with a few of them. But if I have to speak specifically about the startup culture in Hyderabad, I think the established companies have to create a culture of entrepreneurship within their organizations. Take HCL, for example. HCL has produced more entrepreneurs than any other IT company in the country, right? So those kind of things need to be done by Hyderabad-based companies also. Hyderabad is known for pharma APIs, right? So if nothing else, at least some startups from those sectors is something that we should expect.
That's a great point. With that takeaway that more local capital should flow and encourage startups. I would like to thank you all for coming all the way and for sharing your experience and your examples of your investments over here with the entire ecosystem. I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would like to interact with you off stage. They will be there for some more time. I would definitely suggest that you use their time in Hyderabad to figure out and pick some more nuggets of wisdom. Thank you, Subir, Namita, Pulkit, and Mayank. Thank you all.